can tell you a Petrov was played. Another surprise from Zhongyi. Well, I think you probably already paid attention. Chinese tends to change her openings every now and again. I think in every black game, basically, every black game against e4 and d4 against her was played quite a long time ago in a quarter-final. Yeah, last game, Zhongyi was black against d4, was in a quarter-final. The game she won against the top seed, against Chu Wenjun. Then Harika played e4 all the time, and Anna Muzychuk played e4. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6. Anna took, d6, knight went back, knight e4, and then, okay, the main line, and knight c3. Well, I like the move. I mean, of course it's theoretical, but yeah, I mean, I like the idea, because here you more or less, there is still a possibility to prepare something forcing, but well, the character of such positions allows you to simply play it. By the way, queen e8, an interesting move, a tricky move. I assume it's connected with some queen a4 ideas. So I assume white castles, that's the main line here, that's the main move, and then it might be that black goes queen a4 immediately, buckling the pawn. a3 is usually not such a great idea, because after d5, not sure if d5 immediately will be played, but sooner or later black gets d6, d5, and then bishop a3 becomes an idea. So queen a4, king b1, bishop e6, and then white has to make, well, white has to weaken the king's position, either a3 or b3, which white didn't really like. So after queen e8, Anna spent some time and went bishop d3. Perhaps keeping a possibility to castle short. Well, I just thought maybe after queen e8, which is a bit of an awkward move, we have to agree. Maybe castle short is not, well, I mean, not such a bad idea. Knight c6, even though castle long is far more common. So I assume after castle long, black once again will play perhaps knight e5 and will plan for queen a4. Well, in this line somehow, especially with castle long, in some positions like that, white never gets anything really substantial. I mean, white never is much better after the opening, but the fact, unlike many other lines in Petrov, this one is, well, playable, if I might say so. So some positions which might be equal but still strategically complex. I mean, to compare with those lines, let's say, I mean, some of the positions there are so well studied, so deep studied. So then when the opening is finished, the game is finished, more or less. I mean, it gets fairly simplified, the structures are well known, and so on and so on. Here, wait, that's the current position after knight c6. Here, it's far less, let's say, far less studied, it's far less obvious, the plans for both sides. Actually, while keeping in mind what has happened in game 3, I would really be looking for something like this to happen. h4, you know, with bishop h7, perhaps not immediately though. So, I'm thinking, now it feels like really it's a time to castle, and well, my castle short, yeah, the idea I was trying to, yeah, maybe this is still kind of playable. Knight d4 takes, and I'm thinking, as I said, queen e8 is somewhat awkward move, so it can be that in this position, even something like f4 and bishop takes, so that black potentially has a better structure, but white somehow mobilizes his pieces quickly, and maybe this would be, well, some position with initiative for white. White went for castle long, which is, I'd say, a bigger move for all or nothing, more or less. Knight e5, and here again, well, for those who are not familiar with this line, strangely enough, knight f3 is not that much of a threat. So let's say in case of some prophylactical move like king b1, this is not that white is afraid of, because it opens the g file, and this pawn structure on the queen side actually makes white king quite safe. But open g file allows white some chances, gives white some chances, some prospects against the black king. Castles, knight e5, Muzychuk decided otherwise, to take on e5, and d e5 was taken, c4. So trying to play reasonable positional moves and to play them quickly, so that white will, I mean, one of the factors during those rapid games is to keep the time actually. Okay, your opponent comes possibly better prepared. I think queen e8 might have been a surprise for Muzychuk, but yeah, to do something reasonably fast and, well, playing reasonable moves reasonably fast is the good recipe. Queen went to a4, king goes to b1, and now actually I'm not sure, something like bishop e6 I don't quite like for white. Bishop e6 was played, not that black is threatening to take because b3, but somehow something might happen, b7, b5 later. I'm thinking, what happens if queen c3? Well, I'm not sure. Actually, white's play is, well, I mean, white probably is not in time to try something on the king side. It's a bit too slow. I mean, with an absence of an f3 knight, I have difficulties to say how you're supposed to reach the black king. So it's like moving the pawns to g5, h5, which is, well, one can guess it's such a long plan, so it will never ever happen, it seems. Something like queen c3 might be an issue, so that to protect the pawn and well, technically I'm attacking an e5 pawn. I'm not sure if I want to take it though. So in case of b5, I still have b3 and then a capture, while, yeah, in this case, black's being obvious. I think queen c3, f3 played by Anna, so to stop e5, e4, using the, yeah, this motive, so that bishop c4 is answered with b3. That's clear. What I didn't like that much about f3, well, maybe not for a good reason, but I thought bishop b4 might be a bit disturbing, because c3, I'm not sure if you want to play such move. So black returns back, even spending 2 tempi, but now black wants to take, actually. So you'll have to protect, and somehow the bishop is less stable on d3. So ideally you would prefer to keep the pawn on c2, I believe. Maybe though queen e2 is fine, but then I would really consider b5, especially for the rapid game. You know, b3, a queen goes somewhere, white takes, then I don't know, bishop c3. Well, it might be that this is just a pawn down for, you know, I mean, somehow I am optimistic for black in this situation, but it might be that it's just a pawn down. Even though, I mean, a6, you know, opening the b file might be a source of worries. Black as well has some more positional moves, so to speak. Rook d8, for instance. Yeah, and normally that shouldn't be nothing wrong with rook d8. Once again threatening to take, and I think white will have to play Actually, I'm not sure of queen c3. Maybe it's not not a good idea at all. Maybe I have to play queen e2 instead. But then again, I don't know what's white's achievement here. a6, for instance, preparing for b5, and then possibly bishop c1. Maybe that's the idea. Yeah, this one I sort of like. Bishop to c1 to be ready to play b3 and possibly bishop b2. In case of bishop f6, white has this, queen e4, after g6. Okay, then white can think, let's say. Taking b7 is way too optimistic, but to play b3 first, maybe, and yeah, this pawn, once in a while it can be taken. So maybe that's a way to regroup, to put queen on e2, bishop on c1, and then, yeah, to have queen e4 in the right moment. Yeah, once again, to remind you the path to the final of those two, Anna never played a tiebreak, so it was, most of the times it was convincing wins with 2-0, and yeah, with the, there were a couple of exceptions. Yeah, against Stefanova, she won game 1 with the white pieces, but then she had some trouble with black, eventually making a draw. In the semi-final, it was a very tough match against Alexandra Kostyniuk, which was, yeah, the score does not really, the score 2-0 for Ukrainian does not really reflect how tough the match had been, particularly first game, of course. Well, Anna never played the tiebreak, so more fresh, arguably, but as well doesn't feel the rhythm of those rapid games. Contrary to Zhongyi, who played 3 tiebreaks, it all started with her, was it an Armageddon game? I think it was, against Ushenina. Yeah, so a tough tiebreak against Ushenina, then there was one more, I guess, and then it was an incredible match against Harika. So Zhongyi has seen it all. She was losing few times during this match. She was completely lost in an Armageddon game, which he eventually won on time. So less, let's say, more playing days, less free days, but also kind of more of experience and kind of got used to this attitude of playing a tiebreak. Yeah, so a time control, in fact, while it's a rapid chess, but still a lot of time, so no wonder players turn to think. What it takes to play this 25 plus 10, it's actually quite a tricky time control, because, well, it's not really, it's longer than the old-fashioned rapid of half an hour, let's say, right? It's a longer time control. It's somewhat tricky, because if you play too fast and end up in a bad position, in a suspicious position, then your opponent still has enough time, an increment of 10 seconds. I mean, if it's a winning position, it's enough to have 10 seconds increment. So players tend to spend time in the opening to get a normal position, good position out of it. But again, if, let's say, you spend too much time, if your opponent still has 10 minutes and you are playing on increment, it's another tough task. So it's, well, finding a balance, a right pace, let's say. Sometimes maybe not opting to find the best move, but just being fine with making good enough moves. I'm a bit puzzled with, rook f e8 was played, which is, you know, somewhat mysterious. Not that it necessarily is the bad move. I mean, it's probably quite useful, in fact. But hard to believe it's the best move in the position, rook f e8. Anna quickly played queen e2, so perhaps she's planning the regrouping I've mentioned. So wondering what black wants in this case. So queen e2 was played. Queen e2. All right, some thought of, yeah, this is a line I was thinking about, just to give a couple of pawns and try to, no, there was the other line. There was a line with bishop on c3 when I thought rook b8 and then Double sacrifice on b3 would be threatening. So here it makes no sense whatsoever, it seems. Even here, you know, for a rapid game, I would be a bit worried with this. Indeed, white is how many? Three pawns up in that position, but you know, it's not all that easy. Queen c3 is a threat, queen e5 is a threat. Black has all the open files. Of course, well, you do not do this in game one. So imagine a situation when it would be game two and black has to play for a win at all costs. Then b5 has, well, much higher probability to actually happen on the board. Here it's far less likely. So queen a5. Actually preparing for b7, b5. The move will be played in case of bishop c1, for instance. Bishop d2. Is that an idea? Well, actually, might be not a bad move at all. It really depends on the evaluation of this line. Bishop b4 takes. Now it can be some funny tactic. Look, queen takes e5, winning a pawn, bishop c4. Well, initially I thought this would be funny, but it's not. Queen d4, a pin over the fourth rank. Seemingly white just blundered the queen, but not really. Bishop h7 using the same motive of discovered attack, winning the queen back, but black cannot be worse here. Black is first to get his rook on the second rank, so black cannot be worse. After bishop c4, though, there is queen c7. And you know, I mean, there is some... wait, rook e1 is nothing. Yeah, I do like to take with the rook on d3. I mean, if pawn takes this position, I don't really like for white. I mean, it's... even if it's not bad, I mean, somehow you don't want your opponent's rook on second rank. So rook takes, rook e1 at the moment is answered with rook d1. So rook c8, winning a tempo, queen perhaps goes to d7. Don't know how to give a judgment to this one. Yeah, right, actually queen d7 is a clever move, because if I do something like queen g3, which never looked like being a good move, then I might be in trouble, because queen c4, for instance, and then in case of rook rook c1, e1 is protected. I wanted to come up with this nice combination, but the trick is that rook is hanging. Okay, bishop d2 played, so it's likely to happen, this one, I guess. I mean, if black moves the queen, it does not necessarily mean that it's a bad position, but this is something white wants. Bishop c3, so you have to protect the pawn. After bishop f6, I guess something like this will be played. Queen e4, g6, and then this gives white actually something to play around. So h4, h5 becomes an idea. First we play g4 in this case to cover f5 square, and then h4, h5 is on the way. So this way white actually gets to black's king. At least it's a plan how to get to black's king. So after bishop d2, bishop b4 is the critical line. And then takes, queen e5. Do I miss something? Not sure. No, I think bishop c4 is the move. Queen c7. Not that black has to take on d3, but yeah, the bishop actually protects the second rank, so it makes a lot of sense to take on d3, to go rook c8, and then, yeah, as I said, probably queen d7 is the best move. It's a pawn up, you know. Possibly, hang on. Possibly rook e2 at once in this position. No, but then rook d8 at least. No. Rook e2 is not. Yeah, it is a pawn up. It's a pawn up, and black's compensation is, well, I won't say it's obvious. Okay, I can go there. Queen d7, check on e1. In this case, With queen being on d7, white can actually take. And this is probably just bad for black. When you have to go queen e8, right? The rook is hanging, so does the queen. So you have to go queen e8. You can go rook e8, actually. But white will play a3. Well, it's a pawn up. It's a pawn up for white and no compensation. So that's a very promising line. Anything else black can do? As I said, queen b6. You don't want to, well, maybe you do. I thought you don't want to take here, but you actually can take on e5, bishop f6, and to go to b5. Once again, a pawn up. So maybe queen b6 is not a move at all. Queen c5 does more or less the same as queen b6. Bishop c3 anyway. Targeting this one, and after bishop f6, once again I don't know if I need queen e4, to be honest. Maybe I can start by playing g4 immediately, keeping queen e2 to e4 in mind. Even though here I have to be a bit careful. There might be some issues with e4, so that queen takes, bishop takes c3, check, king goes to f8, white has to capture the bishop. Yeah, and despite a weird pawn structure, white is probably still better. It's 2 pawns up for white, and this is a threat, while white king is relatively safe. Yeah, I think it's the first moment when we can say Zhongyi is in a bit of a trouble. She's down to 10 minutes as well, while Anna Muzychuk has 18. Well, it's quite interesting because, yeah, that very moment, it did not look any dangerous for black. And perhaps after f3, I'm thinking, as white queen is well protected, maybe the whole idea of keeping... Yeah, white king is well protected, so maybe the whole idea of keeping the queen here at the queen side is not very good, and therefore I'd consider fd8, and then in case if queen is pushed away, you can go all the way back to e8, in fact, playing, I mean, this looks quite nice positional game. I mean, you are not forced to go queen e8 immediately, it's just that you have this possibility. And, well, in some cases, queen will be used to protect the king side. So this queen a5 perhaps is not the best maneuver. But once again, let's check what seems to be the most principal line. Takes. Can there be... can black postpone, let's say, this battery in a way? Not really. White can play queen b5 next move. White again threatens to take c7. White can play queen h5 with the tempo, so perhaps bishop takes is sort of forcing. Queen c7, maybe this makes a bit of a difference. Rook c8 at once, so that after queen d7, black will be able to play rook d8. I'm still not sure if it gives anything. No, still can't make it work for black. Queen h3, so queen goes far away, but h7 is targeted. Oh no, hang on, here. Yeah, black's problem is that he cannot take on d3. Rook on c8 is hanging, so in case of bishop takes, white takes with the rook, you can't take rook d3, and in this case, for instance, yeah, the queen is a bit offside, but white swaps on d8, because, well, maybe plays rook c1. It's still, you know, in this version, at least it looks like black is kind of more active and probably has counterplay, but it's still a pawn up. You know, it's still black who has to prove he has enough compensation for a pawn. So not that easy to choose the path, and judging by the previous decisions Chinese was making in situations like that, I don't think she will go for the forcing line. I don't think she will go for bishop b4. So she'll probably try to keep the position more complex. She'll probably go queen c5 or 10-0. Queen a6 doesn't make, well, yeah, maybe that's the different approach. So queen a6, now there is nothing wrong with white trying, well, there is something wrong. If bishop c3, then b5 is a possibility. And now it is kind of serious. Not really. Queen e5, bishop here, queen b5. You're not in time to use the b file, right? If on bishop c3, white would be forced to take on c3, then rook b8 would win a queen. But of course, this is not possible. So b5 doesn't work. Queen takes, threatening mate, yes, and queen b5. So then queen a6, yeah, I was saying that white still can play bishop c3, or white can consider taking e5. Here, I'm still not sure where this leads. Bishop c4, and say bishop c3, once again threatening mate. After bishop f6, white can take c7. No, white cannot take c7. Come on, it's I'm still kind of sleeping. Yeah, a2 is hanging. Queen e5, bishop c4, a2 is hanging. No, this doesn't work for white then. I mean, you have to take c4, queen c4, and there is nothing. So it's better not to take e5 after queen a6, but to play bishop c3 with all the familiar ideas for us. f6, yeah, I was trying bishop f6 all the time. f6 probably would allow more or less the same. g4, or even to start with queen e4, because f5 is answered with queen e5, so after queen e4, black has to play one more. Black has to care of his king, has to weaken his king's position even further. g6, after which perhaps g4 once again, planning for h4 and h5. The more I look at it, the more I understand that it's a very unpleasant position for black, it seems. Queen to c5, played by Zhongyi, so that now white can play bishop c3, white can start by playing queen e4, all the attractive options. Somehow bishop c3 looks being not a bad move at all. I think deserves to be played. Once again, I'm not quite sure what's the real time on opponent's clocks, because it tends to change all the time, this display of... yeah, it's clear Anna has more time, but I'm not sure if it's only 13 minutes left for her. I think it must be a bit more. So we are waiting for Anna Muzychuk to make move number 17 in the position which I think is better for her. Bishop c3 again, voting for this one. Maybe I have to illustrate that queen e4 and taking b7 is not all that great. At least I don't find it all that great. Queen b7, I think rook b8. I mean, you don't do this in a rapid chess. Even though it might be okay. So that in case of queen, yeah, actually queen a6, yeah, it's rook b6, other rook to b8 for one pawn. I'm not sure if you want to misplace your queen that badly. After queen e4, I've even considered rook takes b2, but it doesn't work, it seems. Queen a3, b3, and a5, for instance. Actually, this looks far less clear, because bishop c1, bishop will be put on b2. This looks quite solid for white, so white is a pawn up. In fact, yeah, maybe that's the alternative. No, bishop c3 was played, finally. Bishop c3 was played, attacking the pawn on e5. Now it's not clear. Yeah, you can see now you can see yourself the time display has changed. It was stating that black had 9 minutes or 8 minutes, and now it's less than 5. I don't know which one is correct. So we have like two versions of the clock, which is somewhat weird actually. Would be really, really nice. Okay, let's see, if we are coming to a shorter time control, we have to do something about it, because this is not very nice. I don't know what happens. Usually these are, well, the display is collected by a digital board and therefore should be accurate, should be up to date. I don't know what happens with our time display. Right, bishop c3. What else black can do? Again, bishop, let's check this one. Queen e4, g6. In fact, h6 is not necessarily such a bad move. It's not necessarily such a bad move because, okay, there is a check, king f8, but as long as white cannot control e7, as long as white cannot get the bishop here, white is unlikely to mate black's king, and the queen might get stuck on h7, right? I like it h6 in a way that it's, yeah, I mean, after g6, it's clear white will get this pawn to h5, right? After h6, well, probably the same actually. g4, h4, and g5, and it will explode black's king side, maybe even with a greater effect. So f7, f6 was played by Zhongyi. Which in fact should indicate problems for black. Look, I'm wondering what should I do, and yeah, again, queen e4, the usual thing is possible, attacking h7. You can try to be smart by playing h4 first, and then, let's say, planning h5, queen e4. But in this case, king h8, queen e4, bishop g8, black will keep the pawn on g7, keeps the king's cover intact, and it will be somewhat harder to get to h8 king, even though I believe white is still much better in this case. But I would really try to start with queen e4, g6. The downside of this one might be that you will have to spend one more tempo on g2, g4. In case of h4, there is bishop f5 for black. Not sure how serious this one is, because I think I can take this one. Now black has to capture on d3 first, because after rook b8, I think this is simple and strong. Exchanging the queens, then in case of bishop d3, I'll simply take with the rook. It's a pawn up for white, must be an absolutely winning position. So after queen b7, black will have to take on d3, so that in case of rook d3, there is queen takes c4. I think this one is still better for white. After, yeah, actually h5, not quite sure, because after rook b8, I'll have to swap queens. But what I wanted to say, that after bishop d3, cd3 looks perfectly playable. After rook b8, I'll just put the queen on e4. An extra pawn plus still h4, h5 is an issue. This king looks quite safe to me. So queen e4 looks like a very serious move. Go there, g6, h4. Queen e4 played. g6, yes, not so many moves you have with black. Queen e4, g6. So, now it's up to Anna to decide. g4 also makes sense. Wondering if queen b7 deserves attention. Because after h4, what I realized that probably black will have to do this. As ugly as it looks, but probably black will have to do this. After which white is, again, much better probably in few ways. I think I'll try to take here. But this is queen b7 taken. Queen b7 taken, so not sure, let's say white claims something like that. I'm not sure if my attack will succeed, but this way I'm getting an extra pawn and the attack after queen goes back. So maybe a clever policy. Now, you are forced to go rook b8 more or less, otherwise queen b5 will drive the queen away from c5 and most likely will simply force a queen's exchange. So you go rook b8, perhaps this rook. White comes back to e4. Honestly, I don't see much of a compensation for black. Now you can't even play bishop f5 because of a check, right? What happens in case of bishop c4? That's the question as well. Yeah, actually this one simplifies the position a lot. Somehow, yeah, wait a sec. Is this a move all of a sudden? Can this be the move? I mean, it's hard to believe, but not that black has all that many squares for the queen. Queen d5, and then I'll take c7 and, yeah, bishop c4 taken. So that's quite interesting. After b4, though, there is rook b8, it seems. Yeah, maybe that was, maybe rook, queen, yeah, sorry, b4 perhaps was just a silly move. Now, but then if bishop c4 works, then I kind of don't like queen b7 anymore. I think h4 or g4 would have been somewhat more ambitious. Yeah, again, let me mention this line, h4, and I said queen c6, but then I just realized that white takes, plays bishop e4, and seemingly wins the pawn, because bishop c6 threatens both rooks. In case of rook d8, for instance, it's bishop c6 attacking the rook. After rook b8, white has the time to protect c4. So possibly h4 was a better move. Okay, not that this position is not favorable for white. I still think white does quite, white must be doing quite well in this position. Just it's not easy to say if white's advantage is was bigger, let's say, other way around with h4. What to do? So b4 fails after this one, right? So there is unpleasant news for some who wants to take the rook first and then the queen. You can take the rook, but you cannot take the queen because of a pin on the next move. The rook b8, and I don't really see the move for white. So you probably take c4, and then don't know what you're doing. Rook d7 might be the move, but then you have to know what you're doing after bishop d6. On rook b8, I have queen c7, protecting the bishop on c3. So this way I'm quite happy with white. But after rook d7, there is bishop d6, and rook is getting stuck on d7. It is active, it is on 7th rank, but at the same time it gets stuck. After rook d1, for instance, black already can play rook b8. The bishop is, the bishop on c3 will be hanging. Queen d5, queen takes, rook takes. Don't know what kind of position this one is. I think it still must be better for white. Rook d8, for instance, takes, takes. But then it's far less clear. King will come to e6. a7 pawn, while being weak, but can be protected even by, you know, a passive move like rook a8. Anna just took on c4. Queen takes. Yeah, I think, yeah, this, I don't know how the game will finish, but I think with queen b7, white misses a part of his advantage. Rook d7 played. Well, it might be that Anna simply found some way, let's say Anna found some way to make use of this rook on d7. or the position we were looking at. I think, by the way, bishop d6 is sort of only move here. Yeah, bishop d6 played. So that rook d1, rook b8. By the way, after rook d1, not sure if rook d6 is a threat. That's interesting. I mean, I don't really see any clever move for black, so that to refrain from rook b8, probably black will play rook b8 anyway. But let's assume black does something silly. Black goes a5, for instance. Is that a threat? Not clear at all, because black takes back, threatens a check from f1. After this, king goes to f8, and then b3, and probably white is winning. Yes, you have to control f7 square, so queen e6 is the only move. White takes h7. This looks terrible. Looks absolutely terrible for black. Yeah, black will play rook b8. There's no surprises here. Chinese seemingly is very low on time, just a bit below 2 minutes. But still she's thinking. She's kind of looking for an alternative, which I don't see. Don't see really. Well, yes, we figured out rook d6 is a threat if you do not attack. So it's either I'm missing some white's option here, which makes rook b8. No, rook b8 played. Rook a to b8 played. White goes queen d5 indeed. Queen takes, rook takes. And yeah, you cannot tolerate rook on d7 for very long. So sooner or later, black will have to play rook d8. And it's better to be done sooner because, you know, white can play rook a5 on the next move, target the a7 pawn, and then to play rook d8 will be connected with the pawn loss. So probably you do play rook d8, after which white captures here. And I don't know what white does. White has to watch out for a back rank, actually. Has to watch out for a back rank. So that rook a5, for instance, would be a blunder after bishop b4. This you don't want to. Probably you play... I mean, just my problem is I'm not sure which pawn to move in this case. It might as well be that I want to play b4 here. Might be that I want to play... Well, Anna decided for a4. I thought maybe b4 so that the king will get to b3 quickly, rook a5, you know. Okay, she decided for a4. Still white. Black has to try to bring the king, perhaps. Actually, I'm not sure how much better white is after a4, because black can also play a6. This answer was rook a8. Or, hang on, b4 and b5 to follow. That's quite tricky again. Rook b8. Say white takes, black takes b4. Getting exchanged here, king a3. This a pawn might be quite dangerous, in fact. King a2, king a3, moving the rook. Might become quite dangerous. We are getting quite a sharp ending, it seems. Well, Chinese seemingly is very low on time, at least. The one we are shown, it says 10 seconds for Zhongyi one, while almost 10 minutes for Muzychuk, which is quite an advantage, I must say. But black really has to solve the problem of a7 pawn, or try to come up with some sort of counterplay otherwise. Maybe it's more clever with e7, in fact, to play king f7, for instance, and in case of rook a5 to go. Well, an interesting decision made by Zhongyi. She went rook d7, rook a5 quickly, so that black has to move the c pawn in order to protect a7. Well, possibly maybe this is the move actually, c5, because yeah, c5 played. I thought c6 for a bit, but then It's rook a6, and white gets a perhaps more favorable version of the same. Now after c5, I kind of don't like quite much white's rook on a5, and it makes me think perhaps rook a5 was a bit too hasty, because on one hand rook stands quite active, but if you do not get to black's pawns, and it's not all that useful, this rook on a5. Black, though, has a clear plan of bringing the king in the center and even organizing e passed pawn, king a2. And what happens here? Pardon me. How do you stop the pawn? I mean, okay, e1 is controlled, that's that relief. So king b3, let's say e4, takes, king goes there, e3, just pushing. Well, I mean, it might become dangerous for white one day. Not to mention h2 is hanging some lines. So white has to be careful. Rook b7. Well, this I'll take a responsibility to claim this is a bad move, because now white has alternatives. White can play rook b5, more or less forcing the rook to go back, because I think this bishop standing is quite bad. If king gets to c4, nearly all the black pawns are on dark squares. Well, maybe not that, but there is rook a6, which is quite nice, it seems. Rook a6, bishop e7 perhaps, and then I put my rook on c6 and I want to push the pawn. This looks quite nice, because now it doesn't look likely that black will organize. I mean, black can try to organize a passed pawn, but it doesn't look all that easy. If after rook a6, rook d7 back is played, then of course black simply lost some time. King gets to c4, which looks quite attractive. Rook b5. After some thought, Anna went for rook b5. So it's either, yeah, well, perhaps a good psychological decision, because being short on time, black probably won't take responsibility to capture on b5. Yeah, I mean, this is a very responsible decision, because this ending might be simply lost. So black went back to c7, after which, what do we do with white? King b3 will be answered with c5, c4 check, driving the king back, which once again makes me think that probably b4 was a better move. But okay, let's stick with the real game. Does bishop a5? Yeah, bishop a5 she plays. Yeah, because rook on c7 was really, really nicely placed. Rook c6 allows white to go to a 7th rank. Well, perhaps to start with king b3, so that after check, king b3 played. After check, king goes to c3. So now c4 is simply a weak pawn. c4 played, yes. King c3. And now e4. So Chinese tries to solve the issue with tactics. White takes on e4. Now it actually gets quite interesting. I'm not sure if white, somehow it feels white kind of misplayed the position. So you probably take on h2 with black and keep bishop e5 check for later. Yeah, I don't see, yeah, bishop h2 played. I don't see how to defend against bishop e5. Probably you shouldn't. Probably you have to play this move, which is quite interesting. Check here. Not sure. I mean, this, I know, king runs away. Yeah, then I simply go forward. I want to take a7. In this case, I think white's a pawn is really, really powerful. After this check, I bravely go to b5, to a6, and again, doesn't look like black will be in time to organize counterplay with his own passed pawns. So if Anna will play rook b7, I think she's much better. Simply. It's still possible to go king d2, so that to meet bishop e5 with c3 or even bishop c3. But yeah, if you can play rook b7, you normally should do that. Normally should do this. So the pawn is, well, maybe a6, yeah, right. But then once again, rook on 7th rank never hurts. So you can, well, actually you can go there again. You can go bishop b6. After this check, you can go here, bishop b2, and white would play a5. It's a pawn down position for white, which is very close to be winning, because as soon as a6 falls, it will be really, really problematic. Right, now as you can see, the time display has changed, and now it says Anna has less time compared to her opponent. Anna has less time compared to her opponent, which once again I'm not sure is correct, and it's a pity not to have the right. Let's concentrate on the position. Let's try to concentrate on the position here. Rook b7 is the move I like. Anna Muzychuk went for king d4, activating the king to the maximum in case of a check. King d5, rook d6. Oh no, rook d6 takes. Yeah, actually this one is, once again, this one looks very good for white. Don't know how to follow. Maybe again rook b7, and in case of a6, simply to go after this pawn. Again, black's counterplay is probably not in time. Yeah, then maybe king d4 is just a better move, in fact. Black played a6, perhaps hoping for white to blunder something. Like rook c5, bishop g1 is the thing to blunder. Rook b7, I believe, still is the move to play. To cut the, as I said, to cut the king on the 8th rank, never been a bad move. So that's probably what you do. Rook b7 played. Yeah, now, actually black has a possibility to kick the king back. After bishop g1, you can't go to d5 because of this check, and the bishop is lost. But king c3 seems to be just fine. Yeah, bishop g1 played and king c3 played as well. So one of the threats, if black does not play bishop h2 back, then one of the threats is in fact rook c7. So say in case of h5, white goes rook c7 and wins the c4 pawn. Bishop h2 back is played. Now, well, white king will be so... Now wait, hang on. Thought of this move, and I wanted to claim that if rooks are exchanged so that white king will be so active. But there is a check here, and after king b4, black has bishop d6, and it's just a perpetual check. And if you go to d2, then black takes and takes b2, so it will be black who's a pawn up. Rook b6 is the bad move then. Bishop b6 makes sense, so that after this check to go here, and after bishop takes b2 to go here, to take the pawn with the king, to go king b5. You know, I like this one. So I'll just take the pawn, go king b5, and a pawn is marching. King is cut on the last rank. I think that must be very strong, bishop b6. Not to mention that after this check, yeah, bishop b6 play. After this check, now I realize that bishop d4 is also a very, very promising position for white after bishop d4. I mean, if you exchange, just look at this poor king. White will be threatening king d5. Bishop g3. So little tactical tricks, you know. Bishop d4, bishop e1 mate all of a sudden. So something not to miss, certainly. King b4, well, wait, bishop g3, king b4, Chinese is planning to give a check, or? No, but then white has c3. Yeah, king b4 probably wins the game. Probably king b4 simply wins the game, because you cannot really do much about king coming to a5 and a6. So just play king b4, and Anna has not so much time left, but yeah, that's kind of a nice follow-up to her strategy. She was not going after material, but trying to get maximum out of her pieces. Bishop e3 is, well, somewhat passive. Not that it's a bad move again, don't get me wrong. But it's not all that easy to say what's the threat white has after, say, h5, which is a useful move. So just to get those pawns closer. Just to get those pawns closer. h5, g5, h4, you know. White won't like an appearance of black pawn on h file, a passed pawn. Bishop e3 I don't like. Rook b6 might have been an idea, but it will be a blunder after bishop e1, and then white loses the rook. Bishop e3, black is still thinking. I think h5 is... Rook e6, which is very strange. Rook e6 is very, very strange because it allows the simplification. White takes c4, black takes e4, and bishop d4. In a position like that, well, I'd say king d5 is already a very serious threat. So you will have to go bishop e5, white plays c3, bishops are getting exchanged, and then you can see, I mean, just compare the king's activity. King d4 played by Muzychuk, again, somewhat puzzling. f5, still not too late to take, by the way. Still not too late to take, so that after a check, bishop d4, the king is still cut. There is nothing wrong, it seems, with taking on f5 as well. Even though now the bishop is hanging in the air, rook e4 is a threat. So this is something I don't really like all that much. ef5 taken. Yeah, ef5, gf5. Now, white needs a precise move, I mean, to at least make sure he's safe. Somehow, with all the pieces active, with king in the center, I mean, it looks like White's position should be close to winning, but there are some little tactical tricks. The bishop is not comfortable. I mean, if this is a legal move, white is winning. If, yeah, I mean, somehow you have to find the right place for the bishop, which happens to be not easy. Rook e4 is, as I said, rook e4 is a threat. Maybe bishop g5 is needed. I'm not sure. There is bishop d2. But again, I kind of don't like this one, because after a check, you will have to go here. Bishop f4, now, this way black escapes. Takes d2, and then pawns starting to get eliminated. Bishop g5, right. Bishop g5, so at least white keeps the winning chances. h6, again, the bishop is not perfectly comfortable. You probably have to go to e7. You don't have all that many moves. With the bishop, bishop d8 allows a check from d6, so bishop e7 might be, in fact, the only... Even though, after rook e2, who is better in why? That's a good question, because both... No, I think Anna seriously misplayed the position, starting... Well, there have been some imprecise moves, but I still don't know what was wrong with king takes c4, simplifying the position, and yeah, this looked like being winning for white to me. Yeah, she had bishop d2 back. Once again, black can play rook e2. And now at least she will take h6. Yeah, so that's the point. Rook d6 is the way for black to make draw. That's what I thought. So then bishop f4 check. Rook takes d2. I don't think white... Well, I mean, technically white still is better because of pieces, well, because of the active pieces, but I don't think it's possible to win this one. Black can push the h-pawn, then at some point you'll have to give this one away, which must be a draw. So rook d6 looks like if will be played, it will save the day for black in a game which looked, well, quite suspicious to say the least. So both players, of course, are very tired during this championship. Both, perhaps it will be safe to say, are not in a top form. f4, very ambitious move again. So black wants to play rook e2, capture g2 pawn, and start playing for a win. Well, let's try to understand how serious black's intentions are. I don't really think white can lose here, but who knows? Who knows? Not that easy to organize a dangerous passed pawn for white. That's the problem. Okay, let's take rook e2, king goes here, rook g2, I assume, and then white goes c4, planning to push this one. f3, and my plan was to go bishop e3. f2 doesn't seem to work actually. King e2, on rook g1 I'm planning to take, on rook g2 I have king f3. So it's either f2 is premature, but how to... Yeah, actually I think this line will be... Okay, at least the pawn on c4 was taken and rook e2 was played. So king d3, rook g2. Not sure of king d3. There is bishop c3, but black still takes, and the white has only one check on g7. Now it looks it can go either way. Bishop c3 played. Now, of course you play rook g2. So you want two passed pawns, and now it's safe to say that now rook c2 was taken. This I don't quite understand, because it's not the quantity but the quality what matters. So I think if white will hang on, that might be not a bad move. A check here and rook g6, so that two guys are targeted. It's most likely a draw still, even though f-pawn looks somewhat dangerous. Might cost white a bishop. Say rook g2. What do? We take a h6 or a6? That's the question, in fact. Yeah, for the moment though, rook f6. A check on g7 played. King f8. King f8 and rook h7, keeping the king cut on the last rank, which is, well, perhaps will lead to a same in case of rook takes g2. Oh yeah, maybe it's a kind of a more precise move, because h-pawn might have been dangerous. In case of rook f7, h5 first, let's say, rook takes, rook g2. Well, intuition tells you that white must be in time, but who knows again. Rook g2 was played, and so was rook takes h6. Both players must be very, very short on time, so now everything will be decided on those seconds. Well, I'm starting to think, can white be better here? Because really, f3, rook f6, right? Okay, king e7. I think it's a proper time. I mean, if ever possible, it's a proper time to collect on a6, so that you play for all three results at least. Because if you go rook f6, I don't really think white can try for a win. It's more or less a forced draw, in fact. Rook c2, threatening rook c3, rook f5, king e6, rook f6, king e7. King d5 played by Anna. And, well, a nice move in a way, so that, I mean, no checks to this king. White threatens. Does white threaten anything? By the way, she just allowed f3, which I don't like. And my silly move, rook takes a6, was allowing f3 as well, so that after this, f3 was not played. Interestingly, rook e2. Now, what's now? There might be some tricks. Okay, check on h7 never hurts. So to have black king cut on the last rank, bishop e5 played. All right. So in this line f3 there is king e6. Well, which is, let's say, not even needed, but works. Yeah, bishop e5 threatening king e6. All of a sudden it's all about, you know, this Philidor's position, rook and bishop against the rook. f4 pawn and bishop on g3 is not doing much. Rook h2 played by Chinese. Yeah, most likely this will be a draw. Rook takes, bishop takes. Now you have to be, well, you don't have to be careful. King e4. Now if king comes here, it must be a draw. I mean, it is a draw. Black has f3, where white is not forced to take. White can play bishop d4 and collect the pawn on the next move. It will be a draw, ladies and gentlemen. King d7. Well, the most practical way is to play b4, b5 to get rid from these pawns. I mean, white can't really play for a win, I believe. Bishop takes. Now, doesn't matter what black does, it must be a draw. I think this is good enough. King c6, threatening king c5. I don't really see what can be done. So, I mean, you have to play b4 and b5, basically. Yeah, bishops getting exchanged on f4. Why do you think with black? That's a bit surprising, actually. King goes there. Any chance? No, can't be any. Can't be any chance. It's just a draw. King e5. King c5. Well, what are they doing? And, well, and black is thinking, which is surprising. King d5, king a5, king c5, here, and then on move number 60, all units get eliminated. We'll have, no, it won't be this way, it will be another way on move 61. It's a draw. It's a missed opportunity, that's I'm sure for Anna. Muzychuk, about Zhongyi, I'm not that sure, but at one moment it even looked like black managed to get some chances. So, in 5 minutes, maybe a bit more, I don't know, but I think it must